What's up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I have some big news. Yesterday, the SBA Administrator Isabel Guzman had a hearing with the Senate's Committee of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, and in this hearing, Isabel Guzman answered questions that senators had regarding all things PPP, EIDL, Restaurant Revitalization Fund, fraud, and future plans for COVID relief as well. And there was some pretty significant updates. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what the SBA Administrator had to say and some really big and key dates that we need to look for moving forward into the summer. So let's get started. So before we begin, I would like to say that we have some really big dates coming up in regards to COVID relief and in regards to potential funding going to people of low income, minority groups, business owners, and more. We have some very key dates coming up in June and July. And so if you guys are interested in staying up to date with all things regarding COVID relief, economic news, stimulus package, spending bill, and so much more, then please make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. My goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and if you guys could help me do that, I would greatly appreciate it. But with that, let's dig into this SBA hearing, because this was about an hour and a half long, and for the most part, it was fairly uneventful, but there was some very key things that were discussed, and that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to give you guys the Cliff Notes version of this hearing, that way you don't have to go back and watch the hour and a half long hearing. So let's just go in order to the different programs that were discussed. We're going to be discussing the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We're going to be discussing the PPP. We're going to be discussing new programs that have been implemented this past week. And we're going to be talking about the coveted EIDL Grant. That's going to be mentioned at the end of the video. So if you want to check out the EIDL Grant, then make sure to stick around until the end of the video. So let's first talk about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is a grant fund that was set up for businesses in the restaurant and food and drink industry. This is, of course, set up with the overall goal of helping restaurants recover from COVID and from the pandemic, because of the fact that this is arguably one of the most hardest hit industries. Now, the thing about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is that the program was introduced with one of the more recent stimulus packages, but the program has just recently started giving out funds. The problem, though, with the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is the fact that the program had a priority to serve businesses owned by women, by minority groups, and veteran-owned businesses. These were the three priority groups, which meant that they had priority over just the general public who owned a business in the restaurant industry space. The problem, though, is the fact that as of right now, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund hasn't even really started accepting applications for businesses outside of that priority group, and yet they are already very close to running out of funds. In fact, as of May 18th, it was reported that 303,000 applications had been submitted for a total value of $69 billion. And as of today, it's closer to $75-80 billion, and it is estimated that the program will run out of money way before the vast majority of restaurants in the United States have been served through this program. So as of right now, there will not be enough money for everyone, and this is something that many lawmakers were concerned about. There was discussions of what the SBA was planning on doing. There was discussions of what could happen and what could be implemented to allow for more funding to become a reality. And ultimately, I think the answer to the problem is the program probably needs more funding. I mean, the fact is, the vast majority of restaurants have not been served through this program yet, and there really is no solution that would be an adequate solution other than simply giving the program more funds. Now, that's a big question that we simply do not know the answer to. We don't know if the program will get more funds, but that was a specific question that senators did ask of, if we were to approve more funds to go to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, do you think that more restaurants would be able to be served through this fund? And it seemed as though the answer to that question was yes by Isabel Guzman. But again, that's a big question. That is a big if, and it will be interesting to see if that ends up happening. Next is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Now, this is a grant going to business owners that have businesses in like the venue space, so talent agencies, concert halls, theaters, museums, zoos, things like that. Those are kind of all of the groups of people, not all of them, but a portion of the groups of people that were eligible for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. This grant was much more niche-y than a lot of the other grants that we've seen throughout the pandemic and throughout COVID relief, and because of that, there isn't as much demand as there has been for other programs out there. It is estimated that as of today, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant is not at risk of running out of money. There will be enough funds for anybody who wants the program, but the program is moving slowly. And Isabel Guzman did state that money from the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant will be starting to be distributed this week, but it is moving slowly. And because of that, if you're somebody who has applied for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and you have not received your money yet, that isn't necessarily a red flag. It is just because the program is moving quite slowly. Next is the PPP, and this was actually one that was notably missing out of the discussions overall. The discussions in this hearing were really surrounded mainly around three things: EIDL Grant, Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and just the overall fraud and potential fraud within COVID relief programs. And the PPP specifically wasn't really discussed in any great detail, which is surprising given the fact that the program recently ran out of money, and it ran out of money about 3 weeks early. Now, this is something that I've talked about a lot on the channel over the last couple of weeks, is the fact that the program ran out of funds 3 weeks early. Because of that, millions of businesses were left in the pipeline of the PPP, and there's been a lot of confusion about whether or not the program would get more money. I theorize that this hearing would potentially give us clues as to how lawmakers would move forward with the PPP. And to be honest, I think that it's probably not great news for the PPP. I think that this is an indicator that the PPP may actually be done for good. And I think that that is interesting. I think that it's unfortunate for anybody who was hoping that it would get more funding, but at the same time, it's not surprising. I'm not surprised to hear that the PPP is over and that there isn't a whole lot of discussion, if any at all, to extend or give more funding to the program. In fact, the recent bill that was introduced by Senator Jackie Rosen wasn't discussed at all. It wasn't even mentioned in this hearing, which again isn't surprising, but I do think it is indicative to the fact that the discussions of extending the PPP in some way, shape, or form doesn't really seem to be a discussion that's even being had at this point. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks and in the coming months, but I certainly would not hold my breath on more PPP funding. Next is the Community Navigator pilot program. Now, this is one that I've actually gotten a handful of DMs and a handful of emails from you guys asking me to cover this program, and that video is coming tomorrow. There wasn't really a whole lot that was discussed about the pilot program in this hearing, but it was mentioned here and there was some discussion about it being a beneficial program to a lot of Americans in the country. And so that is a program that I will be covering tomorrow. If you're interested in learning about this grant program and if it's something that could benefit you, make sure to subscribe. Another topic that was discussed was the fitness and gym industry. As we know, similar to restaurants, the fitness and gym industry has been heavily impacted by the pandemic. Many parts of the country forced gyms to close for very extended periods of time, and even people that have reopened, a lot of people never returned to the gym. In fact, I'm a perfect example of that. I'm somebody that had a gym membership. The country closed down, gyms closed, they implemented all of these COVID restrictions, and as a result, I just built a home gym, and now I probably will never return to a gym again. So this is something that many Americans have done as well, and as a result, the gym and fitness industry will take a very long time to recover from the pandemic. And there was a brief discussion about the Bipartisan Gyms Act, which will offer funding and grant options for gym and fitness related industry owners. So as that progresses and as that becomes a reality, I will cover that. But as of right now, it's still something that is in the very early stages of discussion. And because of that, I won't be covering it a whole lot until it becomes more solidified. Next, let's move on to fraud, which is a topic that we have talked about a lot on this channel. In fact, this is a subject that I've been doing on an almost weekly basis for a while now because of the fact that there's been so much fraud within the EIDL and PPP program. Now, this was a question that was asked to Guzman by senators, of the question of, there has been so much fraud within the EIDL program. What is the SBA doing to fix or prevent this? And Isabel Guzman's response to this was that whenever the EIDL program was first introduced, the EIDL didn't require any specific tax documentation. All you had to do was fill in an application, but you really didn't have to provide any proof that what you were saying was the reality of the situation. And because of this, many people lied and many people stole money in a fraudulent way. In addition to just blatantly lying on the application, there was a lot of cases of identity theft. And Isabel Guzman stated that as of December, the EIDL does require you to submit tax documentation along with an EIDL loan application. So the time of just being able to apply with just your social security number, those days are over. You do have to provide documentation. You do have to provide tax records to prove that what you're saying is true. In addition, the EIDL program is cracking down on various safeguards to prevent identity theft in some of these cases that we've been seeing so much over the last year from happening again. And she did say that since these safeguards have been implemented, the cases of fraud have drastically decreased. Now, there's a valid question to be asked here of did the cases of fraud decrease because of these safeguards, or did the fraud decrease because of the fact that the EIDL just isn't as popular as it used to be? There is a valid argument for both, but the fact is it's good news that the EIDL fraud has drastically decreased, whether it's because of these safeguards or just because of the lack of popularity, I'm not sure, but whatever the case is, it is good news. And lastly is one of the most important aspects of this hearing, the piece that I think that you guys are most interested in, and that is in regards to the EIDL Grant program, the $15,000 EIDL grant. And let me warn you, it is some really good news. One of the comments made by lawmakers was the fact that there is a concern that the EIDL grant, the targeted $15,000 EIDL grant, is simply too targeted. And because of that, there are too many people that are being left out of the program as a whole. And this was something that Isabel Guzman agreed with. Now, as you guys know, there are currently two levels of the EIDL grants program. We have a $10,000 targeted EIDL cash advance, and then we have a $5,000 supplemental targeted cash advance. Combined, these make up $15,000 in EIDL funding, and you could potentially qualify for this full $15,000 depending on whether or not you meet a handful of different pieces of criteria. Again, I've covered this in a lot of other videos, so I'm not going to cover it today, but if you're interested in learning more, I do have videos on that topic. You can check them out down in the description below. Both of these programs are invite only, and that invite was sent out via email. Isabel Guzman stated that over the last couple of months, there has been 10 million emails sent out and 3.5 million follow-up emails sent out, and she stated that both of these emails have pretty good open rates. She didn't say the percentage of people that have opened them, but she did say that there has been a decent response to them. But despite the fact that there has been 13.5 million emails sent out in total, there is still not enough people who have been able to take advantage of this program. And Isabel Guzman stated that as of June, the program will open up to more people, which means that in June, you could possibly have the chance to apply for this program. So Isabel Guzman stated that not only will previous applicants be able to get a chance to claim the EIDL cash advance, but it should also open up to the general public, similar to the original EIDL grant. Now, as of right now, that is all we know. We don't know exactly how this will work. We don't know what the exact requirements will be. We don't know how the application process will flow. But the good news is that it looks as though the EIDL targeted cash advance, this EIDL supplemental cash advance, this $15,000 in total, could be something that could be available to the general public, which is great news. She did not give a specific date, but she did say it would be happening sometime in June. Now, with that being said, you guys, this is really good news. I mean, the fact is the EIDL targeted cash advance was supposed to be targeted, and this was something that was calculated by lawmakers and the SBA because they wanted the money to go to people that really needed it. But of course, the SBA has its flaws, and they've certainly been overwhelmed over the last year. And as a result, there's been a lot of people that on paper should receive this money, but they simply haven't. So to be able to open up this grant program to the general public, at least the general public who meet a specific set of guidelines, that is incredibly good news, and I am really happy to hear it. Now remember, we have now the EIDL targeted grant coming out in June. We have the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which could get more funding. We have the pilot program, which I'll be covering tomorrow, and we have the huge child tax credit, which should be becoming available in July. So if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, then make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.